energy, or you are an aspiring solar engineer, what this means is that we have a high quality global training program designed just for you. And that includes your professional development as well as placement with solar companies. Also, we provide services to solar companies through global talent sourcing, efficient hiring, and innovative training programs for their employees. So let's have a look at what we have done so far. Recently, we concluded our foundational program, which involved, we had candidates go through our online foundational course that covered basic aspects of solar photovoltaic. So you can see the skill set that the course covers. And after in the program, we have 16 candidates who completed the course, who passed the assessment and are now coming into another talent company as trainee engineers, and they are going to start going through this specialization program. So by the end of the Q&A session, I'll be sharing the link with which you can apply for our next application cycle that will be coming up soon. So please do stick around so that when after the Q&A session, you'll get the link. Okay. All right, so I believe we can start now. And we have our first speaker today, Mustapha Abokede. He will be taking us through the topic, renewable energy in Nigeria. Where are we in our development? Mustapha has developed his experience in renewable energy systems over the last 10 years. He worked as an auditor at KPMG, became an Acumen Fellow in Nigeria, led Delight Design's initial expansion of solar portable systems in Nigeria, and was a first country operations director at Andela just before the Zuckerberg investment. He combines his passion for renewable energy, learning, and mentoring youth in his quest to provide African prosumers better energy experiences. Mustapha is a co-founder and leads Aspire's Retail Solutions division, which focuses on delivering stand-alone solar hybrid alternative power solutions less than 50 kilowatts to residents and SMEs. Welcome, Mustapha, and thank you for being here. So over to you now.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sharon. Just to confirm before I get in, Sharon, can you hear me clear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, then, thank you for that confirmation. Yeah, so just to dive in very quickly, I would try to keep within time. Just generally looking at the topic that says renewable energy, where are we in our development in Nigeria? Without spending too much time, we know that renewable includes hydro, solar, wind, tidal energy, and all of that. But over the past few years, you would find that one of the easiest sources to move from 0 to 1, if I may use that, has been solar. So the two charts you're seeing is just a very quick depiction of the growth of solar over the past 10 to 15 years. You would see how solar, and so this is rapid deep PV deployments across the world, reaching almost 800 gigawatts in 2020. And if you look at that, China is leading the pack, meaning among all the countries in the world, China has actually deployed the largest amount of PV. Honestly, if you look at the graph, Nigeria and the bulk of countries in sub-Saharan Africa are almost missing, meaning there's a lot of catching up to do. That's the graph on the left side. Then quickly looking the same thing on the right side, you will notice that Germany has the highest deployment per capita. So if you take the total amount of solar that's been deployed in Germany and divide it by the number of citizens in the country, it's about 590 kilowatts per person, which is massive. Looking at Nigeria and the bulk of sub-Saharan Africa, there's massive energy demand. There's little energy availability from the grid and from other sources. So I would say this is a massive opportunity for Nigerian entrepreneurs to actually get into the industry, but you need to take your time and create your own business model. Let's move. Very quickly, just the same thing we're talking about and looking at the different type of renewable energy options available. You want to think of it very quickly. Why solar? Actually, you find that solar is about the easiest to deploy within the shortest period of time. And solar is also the one that can really, really be cost effective to deploy at the household level. Way back, there's when people still mostly used energy sources for cooking. Across the spectrum of either being low income or very low income to high income, you find that there were different types of energy sources that people could use. While the people at the lowest rung of the income ladder could only use either crop or wood for cooking, the people at the highest end are able to use LPG gas and electricity for cooking. One interesting thing that we've done is that we've tried to look at how solar plays in the world of delivering energy. So from the lowest income people to the highest income people, someone can get a very small portable device, a solar device just for reading. You grow to the level where you have a solar device that goes on to not only provide lighting, but phone charging. Then you go to the next level that enables solar for powering appliances in a small home or business. And then you go to the largest level, which is either deploying a large solar system at a home or even massive battery containers that can power mini estates and all of that. The summary here is that solar is actually applicable at every level, as opposed to some. It's not very easy to put a wind turbine in a place that doesn't have great wind speed, or build a hydro system in the middle of town, even though there are other forms of renewable. So all I'm just pointing out here is that solar is one of the easiest ways for the sub-Saharan Africa and Nigeria specifically to improve energy access. Let's move on to the next. Yeah, just let's take a look at what do consumers in Nigeria want. Not just in Nigeria, but everywhere in the world. Consumers want constant, reliable power that's affordable, that's noiseless and stress-free. That is what everybody wants. And if you're getting into this industry, you definitely need to start thinking beyond your technical chops, beyond your ability. How are you able to provide power to consumers? Power that is reliable, power that is affordable, noiseless, and stress-free. And if you also look at how technology has evolved over time, you would see that, for instance, to deploy solar in a home, the three key components remain the solar panels, the inverters, and batteries. Over the years, the cost of solar photovoltaic, that's the solar panels itself, has dropped considerably and continues to drop. You would see that inverters are evolving from being these large, heavy boxes to very sleek hybrid systems that have their own charge controllers embedded within them. And even now you can hang them on the wall. So all I'm pointing out here is that innovation and change continues to happen in the industry. So as an actor in the industry, you also need to think very deeply about adapting. Batteries are transforming from the pure, very heavy lead acid systems into lithium-ion systems. Batteries that could maybe only last 3 to 4 years when it's lead acid can now last as much as 13 to 15 years when it's lithium. One thing I would say is that the industry technology continues to evolve. And what you see on the right side of this, those two standing boxes, is where the future of inverter and batteries are going into. So these are going to become all-in-one embedded systems that have an inverter and battery in one box. Today, there's definitely over 50 manufacturers of these kinds of products across the world. And I think it's something that Nigeria as a country should start to get ready for. These are all-in-one systems. They have embedded remote monitoring. You are able to troubleshoot them from a distance and even repair. Think about your inverter system having an issue and someone sitting any state in Nigeria being able to go in, make a repair and fix it. And then these systems are also bi-directional, meaning they can send power to the house and send power to the grid if need be. But today, the grid in Nigeria isn't smart enough to handle that. That's another area of opportunity that people need to be looking at. Let's move on to the next slide. Focusing a bit more on what the key development considerations are. For me, I think the biggest ones are market and government policies, technology and talents, financing, and service quality. I'll touch on each of this. Nigeria still remains a place with very high power demand. People want power to live a quality life, but there is very, very little. And then we're bedeviled by the issue of low purchasing power for much of the population. So it's really, really important that government subsidies on imports and customer adoption, if we really, really want to drive being energy access in Nigeria, we need to think very clearly on the optimal ways to apply government subsidies and imports. No one is asking for it to be free, but things like removing import duties on solar panels, batteries, and inverters, or enabling financing that is very cheap so that people can have power in their homes. This is actually how countries across the world have driven the rate of solar energy adoption. Today, there is no FIT, that's feed-in tariff. I won't get too much into that because one of the speakers may be spending time on that, but basically we need to find an innovative way to enable people to adopt solar hybrid systems, and if there's interesting ways of making feed-in tariff happen, even if it's just within the discos, not the national grid in itself. Though I would say in this area, there is a push by RIAN, that's the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, which is starting to bear some fruit, and the different energy initiatives of the Rural Electrification Agency. When we talk about technology and talent, there's actually an abundance of potential. Like, we have the youth, we have the strength, we just need to provide them the massive training. Regarding technology, there's still massive dependence on imports. If we want to fix this in the coming years, my recommendation will be for us to focus on small parts manufacture. So let's look at it. We may not be competitive in manufacturing inverters or batteries and the likes just yet, because you need power to run those industries. But we can focus very quickly on being great at manufacturing the spare parts for these things, for the ones that already come into the country, or the components for ensuring that these things can be repaired and fixed rather than having to wait for components to be shipped in every time. There's also extensive talent training that needs to happen, not just on the technical skills, but on the soft skills. Like, if you remember what I said, what the job that the customer needs is not for a system to be installed, but the customer wants affordable, clean, reliable power at every point in time. So a good mix of technical and soft skills will be required by the talents that will deliver those. Talking about financing, working capital is needed for solar hybrid companies or energy companies that's providing power to citizens. And then some form of consumer financing. Let's think about single-digit interest rates. All of this 24%, 28% is not going to help people to buy solar systems in their home when they need it. But if things are as low as maybe sub 10% or 5%, it will enable people to, it will increase adoption. And then the final piece is around service quality. And this is both on the part of those deploying the systems and on the consumer side. Very good accessories for solar hybrid systems cost a lot. Customers need to get comfortable with putting in the right accessories, sometimes things as little as breakers, which go ahead to protect your overall system. People need to get comfortable with paying for those things, and even paying for some form of preventive maintenance that will ensure that their system lasts really long. Next slide. Thank you, everyone. My quick roundup on the few slides that I've spent time on basically is there needs to be robust policies in place to enable cost reduction and faster market adoption. The Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, the companies playing in this space, the Ministry of Finance, the customs, and all relevant stakeholders need to enable this so that citizens can adopt in the fastest manner, and even the financial institutions. Extensive and quality talent training. I say a lot that the one thing that too many people aren't focusing on, and I'm glad that ETC is focusing on that, is the quality of talent that needs to fix the energy problems on the continent. There isn't a shortage of technology, but there's definitely a shortage of quality trained talent. So that's one piece that we need to focus on. The third piece, I feel like the DISCOs need to start collaborating very broadly with the existing energy companies, and the energy companies should also approach the DISCOs. There needs to be some form of efficient demand planning and some embedded solar mini grids within DISCO areas, such that if you find energy companies that have deployed large amounts of solar across the area that a DISCO is covered, there needs to be an interesting and innovative way to actually leverage that to expand power when grid power drops from the community. And then the last piece is around the increased investment in the sector. This is really, really important. There's so much to do around technology, reducing the price of systems, ensuring that people can get access to high quality systems. We need to move away from buying just cheap products. So investment is actually going to make the top quality products more affordable to a larger population, and strategic partnerships even within the energy companies. I believe these factors are some of the things that is going to help us improve the situation of renewable energy deployment in Nigeria and across most of the sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mustapha. That was a great presentation. Please, if you have any questions for him, you can leave them in the chat section and we'll take them during the Q&A session. And now moving on to our second speaker, Patricia Mong. She will be speaking on renewable energy in Nigeria, regulation and financing. Patricia has consulted directly for 7 of the 11 Nigerian distribution utilities and served as regulatory manager seconded to one of them. She also was on the team that created a renewable tariff toolbox for West African countries to support the proliferation of mini grids in increasing regional electrification rates. Thank you so much for being here, Patricia, and I'll hand over to you now.
Aaron, How's it going? So hello everyone. I'm going to be talking right now about regulation and financing in the renewable energy space. And the first thing, obviously, when you do this, is you want to think about what policies are driving the sector. So the main overarching policy, I would say, is a national energy policy, and that was done by a group that was put together under the Obasanjo administration. And moving on, we've got a renewable energy master plan, and that came from the ECN. And then we have an overarching policy now, which is called the NREP. It's the National Renewable Energy and Efficiency Policy. Next slide, please. So basically, the National Energy Policy is the blueprint. It contains everything. It's supposed to be a blueprint for sustainable development and how supply is going to grow within Nigeria. And that NREP we have takes its bearing from the NEP. Now, basically, what part of the plan is we just want to increase the fraction of electricity we're generating from these renewable sources. And what the policy aims to do is to ensure that at least 10% of the grid power generation comes from renewable sources, and 20% for the energy mix across board, off grids and all of that will be from renewable energy sources. Next slide, please. So basically, the big plan is to increase hydropower, and which we already have, basically, I think we have a handle on, although we haven't been able to do much with it, apart from the 3 hydropower plants we have now. But to increase the electricity generated and ensure that a minimum of 10% comes from hydropower. We also want to be able to promote efficient use of our agricultural residue, any waste that we have, and then non-wood fuels, especially for people in the rural areas. For solar, it talks about increasing contribution to about 3% by 2020. I don't need to tell you that we're already in 2020 and this hasn't happened. So we're not there yet. And in plans to get solar up to 6% by 2030. And for wind, I know there's just one wind planned right now. That's just in feasibility stages. But the plan for wind is to develop it as an alternative energy source and also to increase local capability. So I know that a bunch of people here are thinking about going into the solar space, but just to also let you know that where renewables are concerned, wind is also something that Nigeria is looking to proliferate in the near future. Next slide, please. So who are the stakeholders? And the reason why we should know the stakeholders is because these are the people we'll have to work with if you are in this space. These are the people you will be communicating with. These are the people you should be looking for information from when you're in this space. The first stakeholder, I'd say, is the Federal Ministry of Power. We already know who the Federal Ministry of Power is, and they're basically the policy driving engine of the sector. Moving on is the ECN, that's the Energy Commission of Nigeria, and I know a lot of people wonder what the ECN is supposed to do. So, well, the ECN is just the strategic planning and the coordination of the national energy policies. So they are actually supposed to cover even oil and gas and everything else in between. But I think there's a bit of a problem with deciding where exactly the ECN sits. And so that's why we don't hear as much from the ECN as we should. But they have very good information on their website, and they do a lot of studies and research. So they're a good resource. NERC is the regulatory commission. They basically are the ones who are regulating the whole of the power sector. You also have the Rural Electrification Agency as a player, because obviously they're looking to increase electrification rates across board in Nigeria. So going into the rural areas and connecting them sometimes to the grid, sometimes off grid, is what the REA is supposed to do. Now, NEMSA is another agency that a lot of people don't think about. But if you are in the solar space and you are going to be connecting people to the grid or off grid, NEMSA is important because they are the ones who have they are the standards agency. So if you're putting in meters, if you're installing any electrical, putting in any electrical installations or instruments, they need to be sure that it's safe, it's efficient, and it's the best, it meets their standards. So NEMSA is also an important body to pay attention to in the market. Now the NBT, which is the bulk trader. What the bulk trader was set up as was a credit-worthy off-taker of power. So the plan was to have all these people produce power, whether it was renewables or whether it was fossil fuel power, and then have one bulk trader that was able to offtake, which is to buy off all the power. What this does is that it gives security to people who are selling power. If you were, say, a solar generator, you would want to have somebody, you would want to have a security, which tells you that as long as I produce this power, there'll be someone to buy it. And NBT is that person. So they would buy off all the power. And the great thing about it, great, I say, quote unquote, is that they would sell the power at a levelized cost. So they would take all this power from all these people and sell it at one price. So that's basically what the NBT was supposed to do. And then you have the Transmission Company of Nigeria. Obviously, when you're selling power on grid, you would transport it through the transmission company. And then we have the other stakeholders who are the guys who generate the power. So if you were looking to go into solar generation, you will be on this side of the divide. I think Mustapha already spoke about distribution companies. The distribution companies, you already know, the AEDC, your Ikeja Electric, these are the distribution companies. And then finally, the end user customers. And in this case, the way I see it, every single Nigerian is a stakeholder in the power sector, because you will belong to one of these groups, one way or the other. If you don't work in the power sector, you will be a customer of the power sector. So we all are stakeholders, basically. Next slide, please. Now, what kind of regulatory environment is it in the renewable energy space do we have right now? So we have NERC, basically, who has set a target, who previously set a target of 2,000 megawatts of energy from these renewable sources by 2020. Now, if you notice, a lot of these policies have 2020 attached to them, and right now we are in August 2020, but a lot of these things have not happened. I think we're used to seeing some of these things. The plan actually was to have the power come from renewable energy sources. And I don't know if we've heard about the 14 solar PPAs that were supposed to come out, supposed to produce about 1,100 megawatts. And I'll talk about that later if I do have the time. But NERC had a plan and they actually put it in motion. They had actually put in feed-in tariffs in a draft regulation. So feed-in tariffs actually do exist. And what feed-in tariffs are like, when I talk about securities, they are security for power producers to say, you will be able to sell your power at this price, no matter what happens in the market, so that you're sort of protected. And the plan was also to have the distribution companies be off-takers of this energy. So basically buy at least 50% of the energy. In 2017, they also released mini-grid regulations. And the point of this regulation was to support and guide the development of off-grid power in Nigeria. So basically any size from 0 to 1 megawatt. And that was the plan. Next slide, please. So how was it for people who decided to jump on this regulation and do business in the sector? Now, there are some benefits for people who have jumped and who are just jumping into the sector. The first thing is actually, as strange as it seems, most people don't realize this, but Nigeria actually has quite robust regulation. We have better regulation than a lot of countries, even in Africa. So we do have the regulation. The problem might be implementation, but the regulation exists. There's also availability of technical support. A lot of donor agencies will support people's businesses, especially the new mini-grids that are coming into the market. Now, another thing was also the ability to charge cost-reflective tariffs. So when you are a mini-grid regulator, or usually guys in the renewable energy sector, they are able to charge more cost-reflective tariffs than people who are already in the market. You also have an early comers advantage. You're new, it's a new market. There's room for growth. And there's also that opportunity to be somebody who closes the electrification gap, which is really important. Now, what are the problems you might face? You have regulatory risk, which is what I said. There is regulation, but sometimes we don't follow our regulations. So there is a very high regulatory risk in the Nigerian market. Also, you might have difficulty accessing money. There are risks of the market, general Nigerian market, because of liquidity issues already in the power sector. You also need to increase your ability to play. I think some people might want to mute their microphones. Yeah, so you also want to ensure that this power that is being sold has productive use so that people can actually afford to pay for it, because it's one thing to sell power to people, it's another thing for them to actually be able to pay you for it. The next thing that's the problem is challenges. You're going to have to talk to a community. If you are doing off-grid power, for example, you have to have conversations with communities. If you don't have conversations with these communities, you cannot provide them power. And also we spoke, the last speaker spoke about high overheads and operational costs. We go to the next one, please. So yeah, so this is just the sector of viability. The sector is divided into the off-grid and the on-grid space. Projects that are considered, any off-grid project will be not connecting to the grid. So you're not talking to the transmission company, you might be talking to a distribution company, or you might be talking to, for captive power. Sorry, next one, please. So yeah, so just looking at this, basically the only renewable projects we have right now that are grid connected are hydropower plants. We don't have any solar, big solar grid connected plants. Now, in 2016, I had spoken about this, the country had signed PPAs, which are power purchase agreements, with 14 solar IPPs, and they were supposed to build over 1,100 megawatts of installed capacities. However, there's a bankability document called a PCOA, which is a put or call option agreement, which means that if there's any problem, if I'm an investor, for example, and there's any problem, the problem to be set out in that agreement, that the government will buy back my business, at least, so I can get my money back, and if I want to do that, leave the market. Unfortunately, that hasn't been signed for 12 of these solar IPPs because they don't agree with the price the solar power will be sold at. Now, grid solar projects have been successful. I would say if you can check out, there's an Egyptian project, it's called Benban Solar or something, I'll find the name, but it's an Egyptian project that's done really well, and Morocco also has some of those projects that are on grid. Unfortunately, we haven't come to that same point here in Nigeria. Next slide, please. So yeah, have there been off-grid projects? Relatively successful. We've had the GIZ support a bunch of these off-grid projects, and a lot more coming online, and they have done well. So, but the one thing that these developers face is finance. So please, let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so now financing this RE projects. So you usually would finance, some of the things about financing of these projects, you want to know about the sector you're investing in. You want to know that it's viable. Now, usually the lenders in Nigeria, mostly are banks, they are actually overexposed to the power sector already. And so when you go to them for loans, they will shy away from those projects, or they'll give you Shylock rates that make you run away. So the main requirements for this financing, when you're talking to any lender, is that you want a very low cost of capital, but you want it for a very long time. And so you're saying, give me $1 million and give it to me for, I don't know, 10 years at a rate of, say, 7%. I don't know anybody that's been able to access that kind of money here for a Nigerian lender. But yeah, so next slide, please. So right, so this is just explaining what I spoke about. So you need long-term, you need low rates, you need long-term capital, but unfortunately in Nigeria generally our interest rates are high. Your lenders don't know the mini grid markets very well, and so this is also a problem. When I'm investing in a market and I don't know it very well, it seems very risky to me, and I will have to hedge my risk by making the interest rates a bit higher. So imagine that you were going to the CBN, even if the CBN was giving money, the CBN were lending at about 15%. But if you went to a commercial bank and you were asking for that much money, you would have to pay back at rates. Right now, the rates are going as high as 30%, and that's because it's pretty risky. So it's pretty much, when they tell you 30%, they're telling you we're not giving you any money, basically. So that's what it is right now. Next, please. So how do you finance these projects? You finance with a mixture of these three things. So you will finance with equity, which is basically giving people a portion of the business in exchange for their money. You could finance with debt, you could borrow money and you will repay with interest over time, or you will finance with grants. And these are funds that are given to you. Some people call it free money, but usually it's not free. So an international donor agency will give it to you for the purpose of achieving some sort of goal, a developmental goal. So they would sometimes give you money, or they will give you some of the equipment you need. And we've seen a bunch of these projects. Actually, I don't know any project right now that has been funded without any type of grant. Because at the rates we're seeing now in the mini grids of about some going as high as 150 naira, 120. The thing is, they have a grant part of it. So that's why it's even that cheap. If there was no grant, if all they had was equity and debt, it'd probably be a lot more expensive per kilowatt hour. Next, please. So what are the sources of finance? Who are the people that we can approach for finance? We're talking government treasuries. We've got a sovereign wealth fund in Nigeria. Other countries have that too. We've got our commercial banks, the impact investors, development partners. You've got private capital and investment fund managers. You've also got high net worth individuals, so people who've got a lot of money. You can find those. You've got corporate treasury departments, pension funds, any endowments, any charities. These are the sort of people that you'd be going to if you're looking for money in this space. Next, please. And so talking about financing, what kind of money have people been able to access? So I'm looking at this graph. It's just from Bloomberg Nerf. It's just basically showing how much money has been invested in renewable energy in Africa. So if you look at 2004, we're looking at about $100 million. And by 2018, we're looking at an investment of $2.8 billion. Now, Nigeria is the red. I don't know if you can see the red. So we had some money put in at about 2007. If you see in 2012, there was a little bit more money put in, more money in, I think, 2014. And I think the highest we've had is in 2017. So there have been some of these projects that have been able to access finance and finance from all over the world. But we haven't done as well as we could, basically. Next slide, please. So sorry, if you go back, if you look at that slide, you can see that Kenya actually has been doing quite well. Kenya is doing well with geothermals, they're doing well with solar. For some reason, we're not where Kenya is, but when it comes to sub-Saharan Africa, we're looking at the investments. I think Kenya actually is doing quite well in the space. Next, please. So in Nigeria, what we've started to do is to issue green bonds. And basically, this is raising bonds for the purpose of carrying out green projects. So renewable energy projects will be in that space. And we've seen a growth in green bonds. Now, it might look like nothing is happening. So if you look at this graph, you can barely see Africa. If you look really hard, it's a small thin line on top of all of these countries. But there is green bond. We're raising green bonds in Africa, and actually, especially in Nigeria. I actually think that Nigeria is one of the countries where green bonds are being raised. If you go into the next slide, please. So yeah, so we have launched our Green Bond Market Development Program between 2018 and 2019. It raised about 49, generally, we raised about 49 billion naira from those bonds. The Ministry of Environment actually has put out bonds, and you can subscribe. Well, it's gone now, but you could subscribe at some point to those bonds. And also now we're having corporate green bonds put out, and corporates actually raised 23 billion or 23.5 billion of those bonds between 2018 and 2019. So this money is becoming available for people who actually are looking for money in the space. And why it's important to know that there's money in the space is that where money is, business follows. As soon as money comes into a space, then investors are interested, because that means if we're raising money for the space, it means that there's something interesting going on there. So I think one of the things I always say is, if you follow the money, then you know where the work is. So if you pay attention to all of these guys and see where the money's going, you have an idea of where to go into business, or if you're looking for work, what type of work to be looking for per time. Yeah, I think that's it from me. Yep. Thank you guys for listening.
Amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Patricia. Very quickly, we have to move to the third speaker for today, and we have Adeyemi Adefemi, who will be taking us through the topic renewable energy in Nigeria. Where are we in our development? Adefemi is an experienced and hands-on project engineer with over 5 years of demonstrated history of working in manufacturing, telecommunication, renewable, and environment history. He has experience in pipeline development, mini-grid design, project management, and construction engineering in the solar industry. He is currently an alumni of Solar Energy International. Thank you for being here, Femi, and over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Sharon. I want to appreciate what you've done so far. Just to check the mic, can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
All right. Renewable energy in Nigeria, and where exactly are we today? I'll start by saying that the power grid that we have of today, it's a grid that is reliable, that is stable, that is efficient, with an uptime of close to 97 to 98%. Now, why did I start with that very short statement? If you look at our current energy assets in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in Nigeria, you will see that the average number of hours that every household in Nigeria usually have light is between 6 to 12 hours. And technically, that simply means that if you're having power from the grid for 6 hours out of 24 hours, it simply means you have to provide 18 hours of power for yourself in order for you to be able to have a 24 hours of light. And as a result of that, a lot of people, communities, businesses, and organizations have been able to devise other means or other technologies of ensuring that there is power available for their consumption. And as a result of this, we have seen that there is an improvement in terms of technology, in terms of material and development in the renewable energy sector. So the power grid of today, or what some people will say that the energy of the future, is energy that are sustainable, that are green, and that are efficient. And those form of energy can only be gotten from the renewable energy sources. So most renewable energy sources are disruptive technologies because they are easy to deploy, and the project timeline for deployment is often very, very, very short when you compare to hydrocarbon or powered sources of energy. Can you move to the next slide? Now, how did we get to this point, and what are the things, what are the rapid developments that took place in Nigeria to get us to where we are at the moment? Now, Nigeria as a country did not really have any functional or sustainable mini grid as it is as at year 2000. However, as a result of the robust regulation, just like Patricia did mention earlier on, as a result of the robust regulations that the government of Nigeria has been able to effect and implement, we have now been able to see an upward surge in generating renewable sources of energy. And I must say that quite a number of people do not know that solar energy is not the only sources of energy that is renewable. There are other sources, just like Mustapha said earlier on also in his presentation. We have wind, we have tidal, we have solar, we have even water, and even nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is one of the cleanest and the most sustainable renewable sources of energy. However, this particular technology is still in development, even though we have some countries already such as US and some other highly developed countries who have already deployed nuclear sources of energy. And I must say that as a result of the 2017 regulation that came into the power sector, where the popular or the NEPA that everyone knows was unbundled into generation companies, distribution companies, and transmission company, we have been able to see an upward surge in the numbers of mini grid that has been developed or deployed in Nigeria. And as you can see today, as we speak, there are over 55 mini grid that has been deployed in Nigeria, either solar PV mini grid, either biogas, wind, and some other sources of, or so some other renewable sources of energy. Can you move to the next slide? Now, just like I did mention, one of the biggest milestone that happened into the power industry was one that was done by NERC. NERC actually played a key role in the year 2017 when the Electric Power Sector Reform Act was actually implemented in Nigeria. And that particular act was able to give space to those sector players who can actually deploy mini grids, or what some people also, or what some other people call undergrid mini grids, in order to solve the massive energy deficit that we have in sub-Saharan Africa, especially Nigeria. And one of the major milestones, according to that Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2017, was to allow industry players into the mini grid sector, where you can deploy mini grids in line with your distribution capacity that falls within some kinds of milestone. What are these milestones? Let me quickly discuss these major milestones. Now, these major milestones, gave us the opportunity, or gave industry players the opportunity to deploy mini grid within the range of 0 to 100 kilowatts, from 100 kilowatts to 1 megawatts. Now, this opportunity has been able to encourage investors, coupled with availability of grants by key industry players such as GIZ, RA, NEP, and all these supporting organizations. We've been able to encourage mini grid developers to build their power system in line with NERC regulation. Can you move to the next slide? Now, just like we said, how have we, performed in terms of renewable energy when you compare to other nations? Just like we all know that one of the major problems that we have in this part of the world is actually power. We all know that when power is available, quite a whole lot of impact will be done in the social, cultural, and economic areas of lives of every country. And so when you see countries who are actually doing well economically, you find out, you see that these are the countries or economies that have highly stable power system. And so in terms, when we now compare what we have achieved in this sector with other countries, we'll find out that Nigeria has been massively deploying renewable energy projects after the 2017 power sector regulation that came into play. And some of these key players have been working since that particular year, working hard to deploy more and more and more projects that are renewable in nature. And what does that mean? It means that more job opportunities are created. People from other disciplines can cross into this renewable energy field. And also it means that the market is much more open, and it allows for more players to come into this sector and also participate in this development. And just like I must say, while these players keep developing and making sure that this massive energy deficit that is currently in Nigeria and so many sub-Saharan Africa, this means that there are opportunities for you and I to also come together in achieving these installed capacity. So I personally, as an installer, I can also say I've been able to contribute, into the renewable energy sources as far as Nigeria is concerned. Can you move to the next slide? So just like I said, we want to look at the installed capacities of these sources of energy, particularly energy that are renewable in nature. And I will also make reference to what Mustapha said earlier on, that these sources of energies, this renewable source of energy is actually not limited to solar PV. There are other sources of energy that are also renewable. However, due to the amount of insulation that is available in sub-Saharan Africa, we get to see that solar PV becomes much more common for you to see renewable energy. It's much more possible for you to see renewable energy projects in Nigeria or sub-Saharan Africa that are mostly PV powered. If you look at year 2013, you will see that you can't find any projects or any installed capacity for solar PV. Year 2014, it's until we got to year 2015 when the reform actually took place in the power system, which gives room for mini grid developers to come into the energy mix situation, and that's resulted to improve or increase in the number of solar PV projects that we have in Nigeria. So if you look at the graph, you will see that numbers of mini grids in Nigeria has been on a steady increase from year 2015 up to 2019. As we speak, at the moment, quite a number of companies, organizations are actually in pipeline development of quite a number of mini grids. And that means that by the year 2020, by the end of year 2020, the number of mini grids that have been installed in Nigeria might actually be up to 100. Can you move to the next slide? So now, as a result of projects that are coming into this sector, there are opportunities for you and I. There are opportunities for experienced people. There are opportunities for people who are just graduating from school. Now, due to this opportunity, there are some skills that are very, very, very sacrosanct for you to be able to, perform well and also excel in this renewable energy. Now, I'm going to quickly go through these skills because of our time. Now, one of the skills that you require, you can move to the next slide. One of the skills that you require for you to be able to participate in these growing renewable energy sector as far as Nigeria is concerned is actually technical knowledge. Every organization, every employer would not want to employ somebody who does not know or who does not have any technical skill as far as solving this massive energy problem is concerned. So for you to be an energy leader, for you to be somebody who can actually be deployed for projects, you must actually develop your technical skill. And developing your technical skills means you must, do a lot of trainings. You must also involve yourself in so much reading, reading so many materials and also going for training. And one of the place where you are bound to get this sort of training is actually the Energy Talent Company. And when you come for Energy Talent Company training, you're sure going to develop your technical skill, and these technical skills are actually in demand as far as this renewable energy sector is concerned. Can you move to the next slide? Now, having this technical skill, you also you must also have this mind of asking question, because as a result of different kind of innovation, different kind of technology that has been deployed, it means that you must be able to ask questions on how these technologies, are actually working. For example, in one of the Mustapha presentation, before we actually find ourselves in the solar industry, where we install batteries, we install we install inverters, we install these components in separate locations, or more like in a segregated in segregated form. But as a result of improving technology and development, we now have what we call battery energy storage system, or we have solutions we have solutions that are embedded and are compact, such that you just pick up the whole equipment and you drop in your client house and you do your installation. It doesn't take you much time. So due to this rapid developments in technology, as far as this sector is concerned, you must always want to find out how this technology works, and these are some of the skills that employers are actually looking for. Sharon, can you move to the next slide? Now, another skill that I found to be very, very sacrosanct for you to exceed and succeed in this renewable energy is the fact that you must be able to work with every other person. This sector is not a sector where you can just sit down on top of your laptop and do a whole lot of things. You need to be able to collaborate with people. You need to be able to call people to explain certain concepts that are not too clear to you, because these are actually power system and the hazard is quite enormous. Hence, you must learn how to work with people, and as a result of that, you get to improve yourself. And also, you must learn how to communicate. There is a whole lot of communication circle as far as this sector is concerned. You must learn how to communicate with your fellow engineers on site, your project managers, your consultants, experts. You must let them know what you're facing on site. You must let them know how you want to execute your project. People coming together to contribute to the overall success means that you must be open and you must learn how to communicate. Can you go to the last slide? Now, above all, motivation. Just like me, for example, moving from telecommunication to renewable energy, it wasn't a very, very easy decision. But one of the things that aided my decision was the fact that I'm passionate about renewable energy, quite understandable, but I have motivation also to close this massive energy deficit that we have in Nigeria. And that means that if you want to succeed in this sector, you must be highly motivated. Highly motivated in the sense that when you are being asked to go to remote areas, to solve this energy problem, you're ready to go. When you have been faced with challenges, the fact that you're motivated means that you're able to go all out and be able to solve some of these problems. So at the moment, as far as Nigeria is concerned, there is a lot that still need to be done in this sector, and this can only be achieved, or this can only be done by you and I, by companies such as Energy Talent, and by professionals, and by people who want to become successful in this renewable energy sector. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Femi. That was very, very insightful. And I think we have questions in the chat section, but before we go there, I would like to talk about our next application cycle coming up for our foundational program. So if you're interested in applying, this is the link you can use to apply to Energy Talent Company. And if you would like to connect with us on social media, you can see our Facebook handle at Energy Talent Co, on Twitter at Energy Talent Co, and then on LinkedIn, Energy Talent Company. So let's move to our Q&A session. At this point, I'll stop sharing my screen so that I can have a look at the chat section. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I have a question for Patricia. Says, please, what's the situation with the two companies that have signed the PCOAs?
Okay, so basically, nothing. I know that the federal ministry has reached out to one of them to ask that they maybe try and come on in phases. And another one had already started trying to sort of get to a point where they could start constructing. But really, the truth is nothing has happened. And the grid isn't even at a point today, in my opinion, where if they said they were coming online tomorrow, that we'd be able to suck up that power. So it's pretty much in limbo. The two that had agreed to the tariffs as they were, I know that the plan for some of them was to come online little by little. So they would basically come online in phases. Well, we don't have any of them connected to the grid right now. Nothing's really gone on in that area.
All right, thank you. We have another question. It says, please, is nuclear energy renewable and sustainable? I need more light thrown on this. This is from Chibweze Naji.
Thank you very much. Sharon, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. And what's a very good question. And I'm happy that people are asking questions. And, we're here to enlighten. Actually, nuclear energy is a renewable energy, and renewable and sustainable because of the following reason. Nuclear energy protects air quality because it has zero emission when it is generating power through fission, which is a process by which uranium atoms are actually splitted to produce energy. So no carbon is released during nuclear fusion. That makes it a zero emission and clean energy source. Another reason why it is renewable and sustainable is that the nuclear energy land footprint is actually small. What I'm actually saying is that, despite the fact that you produce massive amount of carbon-free power, nuclear energies produce more electricity when you compare it with, in terms of land mass. Now, when you compare with other projects, project like a PV power plant, or even an hydro-powered station, or a fossil fuel powered station. In terms of land mass, you get to see that you produce more energy using nuclear energy. Another thing is that there is minimal waste. One of the reasons why we're pushing renewable energy is the fact that it doesn't really release carbon into the environment, unlike the fossil powered sources of energy. Another reason is that it's something you can use over and over and over again. And so nuclear energies produce minimal waste in all the processes resulting to energy. You can actually go online, you'll find out more about nuclear energy. At some point, I think Nigeria was also pushing to start a nuclear energy program. However, there is a whole lot of safety concern on nuclear energy, using nuclear energy to produce energy. And I guess that's where, the major concerns are, and it takes a whole lot of advanced knowledge and technology before you can actually develop or deploy nuclear powered station.
Thanks, Adefemi. I have another question here for Patricia. This is from Chibuke. Says, you talked about grants as one of the ways to finance projects. How are these grants assessed? Are there institutions, organizations that provide such grants?
Yeah, Chibuke, there are lots of institutions and organizations that provide grants. I had told you, and I said previously, that we've had, usually have international donors in Nigeria giving grants. So usually you can apply. For example, I know the REA, through the REA, a couple of international donors are giving grants. Some of these grants are based on different things. There was one particular run, I think in 2017 maybe, but there was a run where the grant was to give you the distribution equipment, to give the developer the distribution equipment that they would need to carry out the project. So the grant could be 50% of the project. And actually a lot of the financing that you will look for will be dependent on grants, because a lot of lenders are not comfortable with offering money to some of these projects unless you can show that there is somebody believes in you enough to have given you money to go ahead and do it. So there are grants, there are institutions. If you'd like, you can reach out to me. I do know a couple of them. The AFDB would give, sometimes they give loans. If they're doing something where there's grants involved, you might get a grant from them. The GIZ also is involved in giving a couple of grants. You will get sometimes technical assistance. So some of the work that you would have to have given consultants to do, some donors would give you and that is a grant because it will reduce the cost of your project. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Patricia. We have another question from Taiwo Adedipe. States, how can energy talent disseminate more information about green energy to the common people in the country? Ugo, do you want to take this question? Nope, okay. I'll just state that in our program, our curriculum also covers communication and as an aspect of the training. So what that means is we are actively looking at training our solar engineers and how to not just communicate solar photovoltaics to prospective clients or customers, but also understanding the technology, understanding the components, how they work, so you understand it well enough to be able to explain it in the simplest way possible. And for those who took our foundational curriculum, they can testify that they went through lessons and challenges on how to understand PV system components and how to communicate that as well. So that's currently how Energy Talent is working on that. And we hope to do more on disseminating this information. Next question from Chibueze Naji. Please, since we don't have a smart grid that will be able to take some of the excess energy generated through solar, please, how do we tackle this problem in a hybrid system? I would like Mustapha to take this question.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Yeah, the challenge is, so there is the national grid by itself, which is not, we've heard everything Patricia mentioned around NBET and the fact that even the large PPAs that have been signed, none of it has come to life. But if within discos or within small areas, though with approval sort of from the discos, larger solar systems that are pushing out power can get some form of interconnectivity, you find that you can leverage resources more. I'd give an example. If a business park has as much as 200 kilowatt of solar installed, and they really need that power from Mondays to Fridays, by Saturday and Sunday, that excess power could go to stores or residents around the community for a fee, meaning that you're actually starting to leverage the excess solar that is being delivered into contiguous areas around the existing system. So we need to find a way to enable things like this to happen while waiting for the grid to get smart enough to be able to accept whatever it is that we can. I hope that answers the question clearly.
Thank you. We'll take 3 more questions and we'll have to round up this session. Next question is, if you said nuclear is renewable, is it environmental friendly? Is it replenished naturally? All
right. Actually, you know, nuclear energy as renewable has actually been a bigger debate, and you know, just like I said, the hazardous part of it, is actually the major concern, and development and innovations are still ongoing in ensuring that nuclear energy becomes much more sustainable. And having said that, you and I also know that there are also issues with solar PV because of after some number of years, your solar PV becomes useless in terms of the power output. And so even at the fact that at the end of 25 years, which is the maximum warranty you can get for solar PV, you still have to dispose all your solar panels. And there's a lot of companies are still working really hard to see how solar panels can also be recycled and also used in producing another solar module. So these are are known challenges, and it's one of the biggest arguments including nuclear energy as a renewable source of energy, is the fact that uranium, which is a major component of nuclear energy, is an earth finite. It's something that is massively available under the earth crust, just like solar, which is coming from the sun and the wind. The major sources of arguments for nuclear energy is the fact that the energy source should be sustainable. Something you can use over and over and over and over again. However, the waste from nuclear energy are not that environmentally friendly, and companies are still innovating, making research in cleaning up that last output or byproduct of nuclear energy. Once they can achieve that long-term sustainability of nuclear energy, then bodies such as ARENA would also consider it as a renewable source of energy.
All right, I'll take the next question. Is net metering currently existent in Nigeria? So after this, we'll take the last question. Who would like to take this one?
Take this one because it's not existent, basically. Nah. We haven't even figured out how to actually price the rest of the energy we're selling fairly enough. So the grid isn't anywhere near thinking about net metering. So no, we don't have it available.
Okay, great. So this last question is still for you, Patricia. For the grants, is there a body or organization one has to be part of before you could apply for it? Or is there a qualification one has to have before you could apply?
So there are different types of grants. If you're a developer, for example, there will be, I don't know, sometimes you've seen competitions. They will sometimes have competitions. There will sometimes be a request for proposal, or request, they would ask people to express interest in a certain project. So if, for example, you are a small solar company, let's say, for example, and there's a project that's available, some of those projects will come with a grant backing the project because they're looking for people to enter the market. So, for example, they had a mini grid scheme. There was a mini grid scheme a couple of years ago where you were able, like I said, you were able to apply. If your company was chosen, then you would get a grant for the distribution side of that project, because that would reduce the cost for you. So the grants are available. The grants are not just in Nigeria. They're European grants. There are other African grants. They're just, there's sometimes even be American companies, but all these grants exist. However, you will have to be looking out for what you need to do to be able to be eligible for the grant. Usually they'll give them to companies. So if you're a company that's looking to work to get more work or get grants in the space, you might want to be looking out for, I think AFDB has a page. If I can find that, I will send it to you. I know I had a list. Whoever this person is, if you will send me a personal message, I can respond to that, and then I can send you some links for where some of these grants are.
Right, thank you. One last question. This question is for Adefemi. So speaking about employee-employer relationship, what sort of job safety do employees typically have?
Okay, thank you very much. Really, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. And that is why we're having this session. As far as renewable energy is concerned, even in terms of quality installation, a lot of more work is supposed to be done, and quite a number of organizations are still not yet straight when it comes to safety. Quite a number of organizations, when you move around, you see people installing modules, without their full body harness or without your lifeline guide or a means of protection should in case the installer actually falls off the roof. So it's still one area that where we are hoping organization gets more serious and get more actively engaged. And one of the things that we have also been pushing is when you know your rights as an employee, you should be able to fight your safety concerns too with your organization. And most organizations actually have safety health and policy or safety acts. When you go through these acts, you see there that as an employee and also as an employer, there are some responsibility that lies on both sides of the divide. And so once you know these your rights, you can always put it on the table and discuss this right with them, that your safety is very important and your safety is of a very big requirement. So you must always ensure that you are properly kitted when it comes to working in this sector, because you are actually working with power, you're actually working with light, which is very, very hazardous.
All right, thank you very much, Adefemi. And we've come to the end of this webinar. Don't forget to apply to ETC using this link. You can also share this link with your friends. If you know of anyone interested in delving into the field of solar photovoltaics, we'll be having our next foundational program application coming up. And with this link, you can apply and then we will reach out to you. So thank you, everyone. It was great having you on the call. Thank you to all our speakers today as well, Mustapha, Patricia, and Adefemi. It was great having you all share from your wealth of knowledge and experience. And we look forward to having even more webinars where we get to learn from amazing speakers like you guys. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Sharon, for anchoring. Mustapha, well done. Thank you, Patricia, well done.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.